This is Love, SARA DARLENE, and this is part 27. I was speaking on part 26 about getting to know the star people. It's your choice, but you better wait first until you can determine who's the logical ones among the group first, because some of them in that bunch, some are wise and some are alien folks who need prayer. so anyway, so love himself, Yahweh. He comes down, yet he was already here, and he does what he says that he will do. He could have went to Beverly Hills or Paris, France, to live among the rich districts of his sons and daughters, but he went to the suffering ones instead. In Florida, in the poorest districts of the poor, he stationed himself there somewhat in traveling. His traveling is easy for him to do because he flies with a ship or without a ship. And plus his entrance into Earth, his globe, and his exit is right there with the Bermuda Triangle. And then when he uses his aircrafts, he used that whirlpool that's being called the Bermuda, like I said before, the Triangle. Florida is right there, and it's closer, and it's easier for the entrance and the exit for him to come and go from. So he, as Moses, along with his first son Adam of the scriptures, who no longer would be called Lot, because once they got to Florida, he's being called Ben Yahweh. So together they endure the verses that's in 2 Corinthians 8, verse 9. It reads, Yahweh God, as Moses, left his royal ship, which houses apartments for crew members, his rich and beautiful ship. He went to live among the poor. Now you have to get the Torah for these exact true words and not those Bibles. They sort of dance around the truth. So now the popular quotation reads like this: Gracious God Yahweh, although he was rich, he became poor for the sake of his poorest earth children. And it's read a little bit differently though in the Bible. But anyway. Now, that's the true reading of that verse. But you know who their habits of replacing his name. The Lord's name in the Bible is kind of absurd. Anyway, in the true story, sometimes Adam, being called Ben Yahweh, sometimes, since he and Father God Yahweh were sharing the use of the earth suit, the earth body, Ben Yahweh would wear it all alone sometimes, for long periods of time, because God, the Father Yahweh, had much business elsewhere. Of course, because he's God. So he'd come out of the body after visiting briefly, and he'd fly here and there. So since Adam wasn't familiar with the areas of Florida that they are calling Mount Zion, that the Father chose to station himself there, and the two of them eventually. So to familiarize himself, Adam's self, he'd walk around putting out flyers in an area called Overtown, and another called Liberty City, and another that was named Oberlacher. Just different districts that were nearby, close together. And these areas of Florida, being called Zion, they were the poorest district ever, where people lived below the poverty level. So in the scriptures, this is where Moses supposedly chose to go to the wilderness. Anyway, so it means poverty, in this case. So where the editors, the scribes, they call them, removed the word homeless, and said Moses chose to flee to the wilderness, but it's God coming down from ship, going to the poverty-stricken places, and Adam, becoming homeless, and that's pretty sad. But anyway, so this prompted Father God Yahweh and Ben Yahweh, Adam, to write one of their first pamphlet books, and they titled it From Poverty to Riches. And that reading is in Exodus 2, verse 15, Moses in the wilderness, and Exodus 13. So now Adam, Ben Yahweh, had a choice to either go back to where he came from, which was Bethlehem, being called Oklahoma, Bethlehem, where he lived comfortably with family members, and had his own dwellings too, in middle-class districts and the suburbs of several of his own homes also, because Adam was well off there. So anyway, he could continue on to voluntarily stay on in Florida, Mount Zion, or he could, go back, But he stayed on, and he endured the homelessness long enough to help the poor, unaware souls of the good news, who were lost to the knowledge of themselves, their true identity being Israelites, their culture, they were lost to that, and they were lost to their land. So, as far as Adam's eyes could see, though, from Overtown through Little Haiti to Opa-locka and what have you, Adam, Ben Yahweh, he saw that it was poverty-stricken. So, some were black citizens from their countries that had been overthrown, leaving families wiped out overseas. So they fled to Miami shores. So the inhabitants of the area, they were immigrants to New Jerusalem, being called America. So the Lord Yahweh, Moses, helped his poorest families to come forward from poverty. The lands such as Haiti, Jamaica, the Bahamas, and so forth, Yahweh, God, the Father, would purposely tend to those children, his lost sheep, who suffered even harder hardship of desolation, hunger, famines, homelessness, without refugee camps there overseas to welcome them. So the babies, like for example, in the Bahamas, they ate from the dumpsters and food off the streets and wandered without shoes from housing days, and where houses were made out of tinfoil, by hand, and neighborhoods loaded with trash and debris. No trash system, no toilets, countries where toddler babies and small children, actually were panhandling, toddler-sized children, with older brothers and sisters, maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, panhandling, and sadly begging for food in those countries. So, and children were sleeping in groups wherever they could at night because their parents were either killed during a protest or by secret governments, or militias or whatever, or parents just abandoned their children to the streets. So with God, the Father Yahweh working the forsaken areas to bring justice and relief, this kept him busy, elsewhere from Florida, Mount Zion, overseas, busy loading up, boats to transfer the poor souls across the waters to the nearest better land, such as Florida, to get there and to be rescued and settle themselves and family on new soil in New Jerusalem, America, where Miami was the closest nearby refugee grounds. So the Father Yahweh, literally, he physically, he helped to build housing projects for his lost, forsaken sheep, to come receive housing, food, and clothing, come away from, poverty across the waters, come dwell in his program, his projects, one being called the Pork and Beans of Liberty City, and God's Miami-Dade County, where God the Father Yahweh and his angels personally also did oversee to it that 753 units, apartments were built to accommodate the suffering foreigners. So Yahweh at the time, he was the, and forever, he's the good shepherd. But it was hard for the people to distinguish that, since him and son Ben Yahweh, were the same one body. People thought that they were only looking at Ben, at the son, because two beings in one body is hard to fathom. And Father Yahweh, taken under his wings, per se, helping the charitable homeless agencies. One is called the Carrefour Supportive Housing and other compassionate housing charities. Father Yahweh was helping out, to help the poor. So this helped poor people to appreciate God, Yahweh, Father Yahweh, help to appreciate God more and his blessings. But not many others looked diligently, though, closely at the person who was in the midst of them in that Moses body. It was, honoring of them, though, but, it is what it is. They didn't look closely and study, the person, within the body. So God is the builder of worlds, and so is his time is needed elsewhere. So anyway, let's go to the next part, and I'll explain further. Shalom. His lovers.